Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Before we begin, if you've ever felt that cold, sinking feeling in your gut that tells you the world you know is a lie, smash that like button. This story, it's a piece of my soul, and it's for every person who has had to rebuild themselves from the ashes. Today's story isn't just about revenge. It's about identity. It's about the masks people wear, and the terrifying moment they slip. And it's about the quiet, formidable power you can find when you decide to stop being a victim and start playing a different game. Stick with me until the end, because the final twist is something I still have nightmares about. Let's begin. My name is Martha, and for 6 years, I believed I was living a fairy tale. Liam wasn't just my husband. He was my sanctuary. He was the solid ground under my feet when my world had been nothing but shifting sand. I'd grown up with nothing. Hand-me-down clothes, the constant, low-grade hum of financial anxiety, and the tragic, early loss of my parents. They were good people, just unlucky. Liam was my opposite. Polished, from a good family, with a confident charm that could light up a room. When he chose me, it felt like winning the lottery. He made me feel chosen, precious. Our life was comfortable. He worked in mid-level management, and I was a freelancer, working from our cozy suburban home. We were fine, not rich, not poor, just fine. But there was always a subtle undercurrent of dissatisfaction from Liam. A sigh when the car needed a new tire. A comment about how his colleagues' wives had more lucrative careers. I brushed it off, blaming my own insecurities. I was the girl from the wrong side of the tracks, after all. Maybe I wasn't enough. Then, the letter came. It was from a law firm I'd never heard of. My late Aunt Clara, my mother's eccentric sister whom I'd met only a handful of times, had passed away, and she'd left me everything. A little cottage, and a trust fund that had been quietly growing for decades. The total, $387,612. I remember sitting on our floral print sofa, the crisp legal paper trembling in my hands. $387,612. It was a number so large it felt fictional. It was freedom. It was the down payment on a dream home. The security to start a family without fear. The answer to every whispered worry in the dark. My only instinct, was to share it with Liam. This was our miracle. This was the tide that would lift both our boats. I imagined his face, the shock, the joy, the relief. I planned to tell him that night over his favorite meal, steak and roasted garlic potatoes. I had the bottle of expensive Bordeaux he'd been saving for a special occasion ready to uncork. I was giddy. I felt like I was floating through the house, tidying up, the secret a bright, beautiful balloon in my chest. I was about to become the provider, the miracle worker. I was about to finally feel utterly and completely equal in my marriage. The universe, I've learned, has a cruel sense of timing. Liam came home early. I heard his key in the lock, his familiar, heavy tread in the hallway. I was in the kitchen, the scent of searing steak filling the air. I smiled, about to call out to him, when I heard his voice. He was on the phone, his tone low, intimate, and strained. "I know, baby, I know," he was saying. "Just a little longer. This is the final stretch." I froze, my spatula hovering over the pan. "Baby?" He only called me that. A cold trickle of unease traced my spine. I shut off the stove, the sizzle dying abruptly, and crept closer to the kitchen doorway, my heart beginning to hammer a frantic rhythm against my ribs. He was in his study, the door slightly ajar. I could see his profile, his brow furrowed not in stress, but in what looked like tender concern. It's been 6 years, Sasha, he murmured, and the name hit me like a physical blow. Sasha, his college girlfriend. The one he'd told me was a dramatic chapter he'd closed long ago. 6 years of playing house with the charity case. Do you have any idea what it's like? The constant, mind-numbing conversations about discount coupons and her mediocre design projects? The words were daggers, each one finding its mark with surgical precision. Charity case. Mediocre. I felt the air leave my lungs. This wasn't my Liam. This was a stranger. I'm not complaining, sweetheart, he continued, his voice softening. I did it for us. For our future. Her parents are dead. She has no one. It was the perfect long game. Be her knight in shining armor. Make her dependent. And wait. I knew her family had to have something squirreled away. It was just a matter of time before it came to her. The long game. The pieces began to click into place with a horrifying, deafening finality. Our first meeting, so chance at a coffee shop. His relentless pursuit. His insistence on handling our finances because he was better with numbers. His subtle isolation of me from a few close friends he deemed a bad influence. It wasn't love. It was a business plan. I was the target asset. The old aunt just has to kick the bucket, he said, a chilling casualness in his tone. The lawyer said it's any day now. And then, we get the payoff. All of it. We take the money, move to Bali, and we never have to think about this pathetic town or my pathetic wife again. I stumbled back, my hand flying to my mouth to stifle a sob. The world tilted on its axis. The floral sofa, the photos on the walls, the life we'd built it, was all a film set, a carefully constructed illusion, and I was the only one who hadn't read the script. The betrayal was so profound, so calculated, it didn't feel like sadness. It felt like annihilation. I want you to pause for a second and put yourself in my shoes. What would you have done in that moment? Confronted him? Run? Comment below with your first instinct. You might be surprised at what I did next. I didn't run. I didn't scream. A strange, cold calm descended over me. I was a ghost in my own home. I slipped back into the kitchen, turned the stove back on, and finished cooking dinner. My hands were steady. My face was a placid mask. When I called Liam to eat, my voice was light, cheerful. The performance of a lifetime had begun, and the stakes were $387,612. He sat down, all smiles, completely oblivious to the corpse sitting across from him. Smells amazing, darling. Long day? I asked, pouring the wine, my hand not even trembling. You know it. Just grinding away. For us. He took a sip of wine. This is fantastic. What's the occasion? I looked at him, at the man who had sold me a dream for 6 years, and I smiled. It was the most difficult thing I've ever done. Do I need an occasion to celebrate the amazing man I married? He bought it. Of course he did. He saw what he'd trained himself to see. His devoted, oblivious wife. That night, as he slept, I lay beside him, the space between us feeling like a chasm. I was a vault of secrets. His, and now, my own. The inheritance letter was hidden in a sealed envelope taped to the back of my rarely used sewing machine. It was my nuclear codes. The next morning, I went to a payphone. Yes, they still exist. And called the lawyer, Mr. Albright. I explained the situation in a clipped, professional tone. I instructed him that under no circumstances was anyone, especially my husband, to be informed of the inheritance. I set up a new, private bank account. I became a secret agent of my own life. I also went to a tech store and bought a tiny, Voice-activated audio recorder. The kind that could slip into a pen or a charging brick. I needed proof. I needed to hear the plan from his own mouth, in all its gory detail. This is where the game changed. Have you ever had to pretend everything was fine when your world was falling apart? Type "mask on" in the comments if you've been there. It's a special kind of hell. For 2 weeks, I lived a double life. By day, I was the loving wife, listening to Liam complain about work, making his lunches, folding his socks. By night, I was a digital sleuth, checking the recorder, following his digital footprints. The recorder was a treasure trove of venom. I heard him tell Sasha about my naivety. He mocked my dreams of starting my own design studio. She has the talent of a colorblind monkey. He laughed. I heard them plan their life in Bali, down to the villa they would rent with my money. I heard him call me his final project. Each word was a lash, but each one also hardened my resolve. This wasn't just about money anymore. Then, I got my golden ticket. On the recorder, I heard him tell Sasha he was meeting a financial advisor friend, Mark, to discuss asset liquidation strategies for a future, hypothetical windfall. He was preparing to pounce. Liam's demeanor shifted subtly. He became impatient. Short. The loving husband mask was getting heavy for him to wear. The vulture was getting restless. Then, the masterstroke. I created a fake email address and, posing as a paralegal from a different firm, sent myself an email. I made sure Liam would see it. The email was brief and somber. It expressed condolences for the recent passing of my Aunt Clara. It mentioned a small estate and outstanding debts that would likely consume most of the assets. It was the perfect counter-narrative to the truth. I left the email open on my laptop and went to take a shower. When I came out, Liam was pale, his jaw tight. The predator thought his prey was barren. "Hey, you got an email," he said, his voice strained. "Oh?" I feigned ignorance, then looked. I let my face fall, summoning every ounce of my acting skill. I let a few genuine tears of frustration and anger. For him, not for a dead aunt, well in my eyes. "Oh, Liam, I'm so sorry. I thought maybe she'd have something. Something for us. For our future." I buried my face in his chest. The ultimate irony. It's all just more debt. More problems. He held me, his body rigid. I could almost hear the gears grinding in his head. His 6-year investment had just been written off as a loss. The next phone call I recorded was explosive. "It's gone," Liam hissed into his phone. "All of it. The stupid old bat died in debt. 6 years, Sasha. Wasted." Sasha's voice, tinny through the recorder, was shrill and barely audible. "There's nothing to do," he snarled. "The well is dry. The plan is over." There was a long pause. Then, Liam's voice, cold and decisive. "No, I can't. I can't stand the sight of her. Her pathetic, hopeful face. I'm done. I'll file for divorce. We'll cut our losses. My 401k has a little in it. It's not Bali, but it's a start." My blood ran cold. He was going to leave. Just like that. The moment I was no longer profitable, I was disposable. The charity case was being sent back to the charity shop. But I wasn't the same woman he'd married. I was no one's charity case. It was time for the curtain call. I planned a reconciliation dinner. I told Liam I knew we'd been distant, and that despite the bad news about my aunt, we still had each other. I wanted to celebrate us. I booked a private room at a fancy restaurant he'd always wanted to go to. He agreed, probably seeing it as one last free meal before he dropped the divorce bomb. What he didn't know was that I had transferred the entire $387,612 into my new private account that morning. I had also hired a private investigator who had dug up everything on Sasha, including a husband she hadn't divorced yet. My web was complete. I arrived at the restaurant first. I wore a red dress, the color of warning, of danger. I set up my tablet, connected to a small projector I'd hidden in the room, synced to the audio files on my phone. Liam arrived, looking handsome and hollow. He ordered the most expensive wine on the menu. "So," he said, forcing a smile, "what are we celebrating?" "The end of an era," I said, my voice calm. He blinked. "What?" I took a sip of water. "I know, Liam. I know about Sasha. I know about the long game. I know you think I'm a mediocre, pathetic charity case." His face went through a rapid series of emotions: shock, denial, and finally, a cold, ugly anger. "I don't know what you're talking about, Martha. You're being hysterical." "Am I?" I picked up my phone. "Let's listen." I pressed play on the first audio file. His voice, clear as day, filled the room. 6 years of playing house with the charity case. He shot up from his chair, his face a mask of fury and panic. "You conniving little? You recorded me?" "Sit down, Liam," I said, my voice ice. "The show's not over." I played more. His plans for Bali, his mockery, his conversation after the fake email, where he decided to discard me. With each clip, he deflated more, until he was just a shell of a man, slumped in his chair. "You have no money," he finally spat. "Your aunt left you nothing. You have nothing." I smiled then. A real, genuine smile. "Oh, Liam, that's where you're wrong." I opened the banking app on my phone and turned the screen towards him. He stared at the balance. $387,612. The look on his face was worth every second of the agony. It was a beautiful, perfect mosaic of shock, rage, and utter, devastating loss. The lawyer's email was a fiction, I explained softly. "A test. And you failed spectacularly. This money is mine. Every single cent. And you will never, ever touch it. I'll fight you for it in the divorce." He snarled. "A cornered animal. It's marital property. I inherited it after I discovered your infidelity and financial predation," I said. "And I have hours of audio evidence, and a file from a PI about your bigamist girlfriend to ensure you get nothing. In fact, if you don't sign the pre-prepared divorce papers my lawyer has, which relinquish all claims to my assets, I will press charges for fraud and emotional abuse. I will also send the entire audio file and the PI's report to Sasha's husband and to your entire family. You will be exposed for the pathetic con man you are." I slid a manila folder across the table. The divorce papers. He looked from the phone with the bank balance to the folder, to my face. The fight drained out of him. He knew he was checkmated. He picked up the pen. His hand shook as he signed. I stood up, gathering my purse. I looked at the man I had loved for 6 years, now a broken stranger. "You thought you were playing a long game with a charity case," I said, pausing at the door. "But you underestimated the most valuable asset in the room. My resilience. Goodbye, Liam." I walked out of that restaurant, the weight of the betrayal finally, truly, lifting from my shoulders. I didn't feel happy. I felt clean. I felt free. But the story doesn't quite end there. There's one last twist. A month after Liam was gone, I was finally sorting through the last of the physical boxes from my aunt's cottage. In an old, musty trunk, I found her journals. I sat on the floor of my new apartment, surrounded by the scent of old paper and lavender, and I began to read. And I found an entry, dated a year before she died. My dearest Martha, I watch you from a distance. I see the man you married. He has the eyes of a taker, not a giver. My late husband, Arthur, was the same. He married me for my family's money and spent a decade trying to break my spirit. I only saw his true nature when it was almost too late. I see that same shadow over you. So, I am leaving you everything. Not just the money, but this journal. The money and the cottage is your freedom. But this story, my story, is your weapon. If he is the man I fear he is, he will show his colors when the money arrives. Be smarter than I was. Be stronger. Use it, and get out. My aunt hadn't just given me an inheritance. She had given me a warning from beyond the grave. She had seen the same predator I had been blind to. Her betrayal in the past had armed me for my own battle in the present. Her pain had become my power. The $387,612 wasn't the real inheritance. The real inheritance was the wisdom to see the trap, and the strength to walk away from it. So, that's my story. It was the most painful, and ultimately, the most empowering experience of my life. I used the money to start my own design studio, which is now thriving. I'm in therapy. I'm healing. And I'm free. I want to leave you with this. The most dangerous prisons aren't made of bars. They're made of pretty lies and the fear of being alone. But your worth is not defined by anyone else's valuation. Your peace is the most valuable currency you will ever have. If this story resonated with you, if it made you feel something, please do me a huge favor and share this video. Let's get this message of strength and resilience out there. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the bell notification, because I have more stories of modern betrayal and revenge coming your way. Now, I want to hear from you. What was the biggest lesson you took from my story? Was it about trust? About money? About listening to your intuition? Let's have a powerful conversation in the comments below. Stay strong, stay sharp, and never, ever let anyone make you feel like a charity case. You are the prize. See you in the next video.